Just want to talk also about National Education Union nationwide teacher strikes today and Friday. Yet more strikes. We've had regional ones, we've had other nationwide ones, ongoing battles. National Education Union, I mean, it's run by hard left, communist card-carrying lefties who basically didn't want teachers in schools ever again. Yeah. They're not big fans of children learning anything because, remember, the dumb population is an acquiescent population. But not a single front page even mentions the fact that our children, yet again, are losing out on a day's education. And yet again, millions of parents are losing out on a day's pay because they had to stay at home and look after their kids. Yeah, so like many things in the public sector, we have become sanitised, whereby it's now become normal, and we kind of work our way around it. My kids, actually, 2 of them at state school, have been told that today is a remote learning day. So that's the label, that's the cover that the school is using so as not to say to the kids, actually, we're going on strike because we want more money and we don't care about your lack of education. I don't know. And again, I think people have a right. I do believe in the right to strike. It's really important. But I'm just not entirely sure that. What was the turnout this time on the ballot? I know, it was legal, but it's just. I mean, it's like just over. So almost the same amount of people are not voting to strike as teachers as are voting to strike as teachers. Which says quite a lot of good things about teachers, in my view. But there we are. Well, let's talk to a teacher and co-founder of the Invicta National Academy. They're set up back in 2020 as a result of COVID-19 policies to try and reconnect children with their missed learning. That's Stephen James, who joins us now. Good morning to you.
Hello, Julia. Good to speak to you again.
Thank you very much for joining us. I mean, it is extraordinary, isn't it, that millions of children today won't be at school. They'll be remote learning, most of them. Who are we kidding? They'll be down the local arcades, or sitting around in parks because teachers are out on strike. And no one seems to think it's worth putting on a front page.
Look, first and foremost, I'm glad to say both my daughters are in school, which is brilliant. And just going back to what you were saying a minute ago about, the majority of teachers are hardworking and, dedicated to their classes. And, there's a really keen distinction between the NEU and teachers. They are very, very different beasts. And this is an NEU strike, not a teacher strike.
That's a very, very important point. In fact, I believe most teachers are not members of a teaching union. And although the NEU is the biggest union, again, huge numbers of teachers didn't vote for this strike. It doesn't have full support, but it's very difficult for a school to be run if you haven't got enough adults on site.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, this is a really, we joke about kind of July being the kind of wind down to the summer holidays, but July is a really, really important time in school, particularly primary schools, when you've got, those year 6s going to have their transition days into secondary school. You've got, there's end of year performances where parents are there sobbing away and crying.
Tell me about it.
Celebrating their children and their time at school. Sports days, the egg and spoon race, those kinds of things that are things that stick in children's minds.
And lots, got to remember, a lot of parents missed out on this stuff in 2020 and 2021. A lot of things scaled back. And again, some of my most treasured memories of, seeing my daughter singing in a school play and that meant. Also, me sniggering at the back of the school orchestra because I'm just a terrible, terrible human being. But these are really important moments for children and for parents, and they're missing out on a lot of these things. Even like some of the school trips. Again, lots of kids might get taken on lots of holidays. There are lots of kids who really don't get that, and an opportunity to go away to school is an amazing opportunity for them. Look, I went to a bog standard comp. I don't remember being taught anything in the month of July. It was all just sort of mufti days and bring games to school days. One of the things that always frustrates me is when teachers say, we haven't got time to teach the curriculum because they say that when actually they've got 3 weeks of the year, they don't actually do any teaching.
Well, I wouldn't say it's like that anymore. I mean, schools are very kind of professionally run nowadays, as to say when we were in school.
I hope so.
Absolutely. But, these strike days just do not help at all. So not only are they kind of having those kind of, as you say, maybe a few mufti days here and there, they've also got these strike days. I think, what are we on now? 8, 9 strike days? Yeah. Those are days of learning. Those are 9 maths lessons, 9 English lessons. Those are things that are going to stop children, reaching their potential when it comes to setting their exams and GCSEs, A-levels, because they're the foundations that kind of everything is built on.
And especially as state schools lost out, so many of them. I mean, look, there were some state schools that did a brilliant job during the pandemic. There were some private schools that did a terrible job during the pandemic. I know parents who were paying 20 grand a year who barely got a lesson during the first 6 months of lockdowns in 2020. But I mean, I bought privilege for my daughter. I put her in a local private school. Absolutely love it. Best money I've ever spent. I'm very lucky to be able to.
Apparently, they're not going to be around too
well, no, exactly, yeah. No, but I'm very lucky to be able. I'm very lucky to be able to afford it. I didn't realise I bought that much privilege though, because I've got friends who send their kids to what they thought were good leafy suburb state schools. They moved out of town to be somewhere to be a good school, and they barely got an email for 6 months from the school. And it is absolutely shocking how far behind children have fallen. And we just accepted that, well, just kids, oh, it's all right, we'll just dumb down the exams for a few years. Doesn't really matter. We'll raise some grades so parents don't really notice, and we'll just carry on as we were. But we've now got, not to say generation, it's not like the ones who did A-levels or GCSEs in the last few years. Every child, nursery onwards, has fallen behind by the best part of a year in most schools. And apparently we're just going to say that's okay.
But you're absolutely right. And you pointed out about the headlines across all the newspapers not having this on the front pages. Now, the reason for that is, the great British public are hugely pragmatic. And what COVID has shown them is that if they need to, they can access teaching resources, they can access learning resources, not the same as a qualified teacher at all, not the same as being in school, but we are pragmatic. And I bet you if there were train strikes and we could drive trains, we would be driving them ourselves.
We are pragmatic, but you know what? It's the kids who most need education as their route out of a bad life, who have bad parenting, poverty, and all and living in a sinking state. They're the ones whose parents aren't accessing that stuff. Their parents are either out of their head on heroin, or their parents are off working 3 jobs trying to make ends meet. Those kids aren't getting that. The middle-class parents go, oh, it's all right, we'll take him to the Natural History Museum. He'll have a lovely day. This is the thing, that people don't understand the impact of this. Well, look, if I took my kid out of school, I'd get a 60 quid fine for taking her to Disneyland a day early during term time. Never once have my daughter missed an hour of school to get a cheaper flight, because I feel that the message that we send to her about how important school is and how important her education is absolutely sacrosanct.
And that's not being backed up by the teachers.
It's not.
Who are willingly going on strike, and that's the problem. I say teachers, the NEU.
NEU, very crucial distance. Stephen James, a teacher and co-founder of the Invicta National Academy, thank you for that. Let's bring back Russell Quirk on this. Look, I agree with the right to strike and everything. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure teachers have read the room on this. Apparently parents are still supporting them, but I don't think parents understand quite how much damage is being done to the lack of continuity in the classroom.
Yeah. Well, again, as we said earlier, it depends how the question is asked, doesn't it, in terms of that support.
Do you support teachers not going on strike?
Well, yeah. Or do you support teachers having more money? It's just an easy, lazy answer just to say yes, isn't it?
Also, people like their child's teacher.
Yeah, but I think that the real salient point for me just made is that quite apart from the lack of education or the missing education that befalls our kids as a consequence of these reckless strikes, in my opinion, it is the message it sends those kids in future, which is don't need to go to work today.
And we've seen this with 100,000 plus kids.
Don't like my boss, so I'll decide to work from home.
Any employers want to say that about under 30s? I think we've all seen that, haven't we?
It's not a great disciplined message for the future for our generations to come.
Interesting, also another story, Women's and Equalities Committee report out today saying that sexual harassment is a serious problem in schools, certainly mixed schools. They're saying that boys need relationship lessons. But of course, these are the same committee that endorses gender-neutral toilets, where basically girls are forced to have boys wandering in and kicking in the doors and the like. It is true. I do feel that we have, and we've seen this madness in terms of the sex education and telling children as young as 3 years old you might be born in the wrong body. If there's one thing I would like Rishi Sunak to do after getting on top of the economy, and even more I think the NHS right now, is get on top of what the earth is going on in our schools.
Yes. Otherwise you end up with men breastfeeding on public transport.
We'll talk about that. Men can't breastfeed. Say it out loud, people. Say it out loud. Looking forward to my bank account being closed later today.